Here is your latest Africa news. German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock has called on South Africa to align itself with Ukraine amidst the ongoing conflict with Russia. In an article published in the South African newspaper Sunday Times, Baerbock emphasized the significance of South Africa's international voice and urged the country's authorities to abandon their neutral position. Baerbock called the voice of South Africa in the international arena important and called on the country's authorities to relinquish a neutral position in relation to Ukraine, which is defending itself from the invasion of the Russian Federation. Baerbock said that she understands that South Africans living far from Ukraine do not want to intervene and understand someone else's military conflict. In the article, she added, "But I want to encourage everyone to ask themselves the question, what kind of reaction would I expect from the international community if this war was unfolding in my neighborhood?" wrote the head of the German Foreign Ministry in the article. This call to support Ukraine is seen in South Africa as very hypocritical, as the historical ties between Germany, then called West Germany, and apartheid South Africa were marked by a close relationship, despite international sanctions imposed on the latter. From diplomatic cooperation to nuclear collaboration and arms exports, the two nations maintained a controversial alliance that endured for several decades. This is despite the plight of the South African people under the brutal thumb of apartheid. So many in South Africa see this call and visit as disingenuous as Germany never cared for the plight of South Africa through their long struggle for independence. Baerbock's article comes ahead of her visit to South Africa. South Africa, being part of the non-aligned countries, has traditionally maintained a neutral stance on international conflicts. Let us know in the comments below if you found this video informative. Please show your support by liking and sharing this video for the YouTube algorithm. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to receive updates on our latest videos. And always remember, Africa is watching. Here is your latest Africa news. The government of Mali calls for the withdrawal without delay of the United Nations peacekeeping mission in the country. Mali's foreign minister accused the UN mission of failing to respond to security challenges. The peacekeeping mission was established in 2013 to stabilize the country amid a rebel insurgency. He called on the United Nations Security Council to withdraw a peacekeeping mission operational in the country for a decade, citing its failure to respond to security challenges. MINUSMA head El Gassim Wayne reacted to Mali's decision, saying it was nearly impossible to maintain the mission without the host country's consent. There have been several protests in Mali and other parts of Africa, like the Democratic Republic of Congo and the Central Africa Republic, all calling on UN peacekeepers to leave due to failing to help. Currently, the United Nations has 4 peacekeeping missions in Africa: MINURSO in the Western Sahara, UNAMSIL in Sierra Leone, UNMI in Eritrea and Ethiopia, and MONUC in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. UN peacekeeping missions in Africa have faced numerous controversies, casting a shadow on their reputation. Instances of misconduct, abuse of power, and failure to protect civilians, theft of Naruto resources have emerged, causing significant concerns. These controversies have involved sexual exploitation and abuse, failure to protect civilians, corruption and financial mismanagement, use of excessive force, and inadequate capacity and training. But the most pressing concern from Mali is the UN's inability to effectively protect civilian populations during conflicts. The UN's response to the Rwandan genocide in 1994, where peacekeepers were unable to prevent the death of 1 million Rwandans and instead only save white diplomats, stands as a tragic example. Similar concerns have been raised in relation to the Darfur conflict in Sudan and the ongoing crisis in South Sudan. UN Security Council members are to vote on MINUSMA's mandate by June 30th. That requires at least 9 votes in favor and no vetoes by Russia, China, the United States, United Kingdom, or France to pass. Let us know in the comments below if you found this video informative. Please show your support by liking and sharing this video for the YouTube algorithm. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to receive updates on our latest videos. And always remember, Africa is watching.
This is not a war from between Russia and Ukraine. This is a war declared by NATO, led by Washington, and Russia has the right to defend itself.
Welcome to Candid Africa, truthful and unapologetic.
This is war declared on Russia, led by Washington and NATO. It's very clear, it's a very simple thing. And as I indicated earlier, this war was declared 30 years ago, probably. During after the end of the Cold War, this idea of hegemony came, control everything, influence the world, divide the world into areas of influence. And it's not only expanding influence. It was a declaration of war because there was a concept developed by these guys to contain those who can compete, or at least who can share something in the global scene. That was not allowed. And because of the background of the Cold War era, this obsession of containing Russia was there for the last 30 years. It's nothing new. If you are containing one nation not to grow, not to compete, not to be able to make its contributions, then you are declaring war. I wouldn't be sitting here waiting for someone to contain me with sanctions, with obstructions, with the confusion, all sorts of things. This is a declaration of war. And we had our position very clear, not yesterday or the day before, but we said this is not the kind of world order that the peoples of all continents need. Nobody needs this kind of policies, hegemony, control, and not allow people to grow and work hard to change their quality of life. This idea of war in Ukraine or war between the Russian Federation and Ukraine is not true at all. This is war declared by NATO and Washington against the Russian Federation for the last 30 years. This has been going on and on and on for the last 30 years. How can you contain Russia? Not enable Russia to economically compete, not enable Russia to compete in technology, not allow Russia to compete in industries, not allow Russia to even have influence everywhere. If you have declared this war, then the war is there. It's not a war between Russia and Ukraine. For that matter, our position was clear. We were against this so-called global order or world order. We've been victims of these sanctions. It's not big nations or not powerful nations like Russia, China, or anybody else, but even those who don't bow or kneel down to this ideology of hegemony will have to be punished. Sanctions. This declaration of war will have to end. This is not a war from between Russia and Ukraine. This is a war declared by NATO, led by Washington, and Russia has the right to defend itself, not alone. It's not an isolated Russian case. This is a global issue. And we need an order, a global order or a world order that enables everybody to share, cooperate. Complementarity will have to be there. You can't contain someone, you can't contain one nation, you can't force or even use force, all sorts of coercion to subdue nations. This is not acceptable.
There we have it. Let us know if you liked or hated what you heard in the comments below. In this show, we do not give you opinions. We want us to discuss below. That's the whole point of listening to a candid speech, not us imposing our opinions on you, but all of us discussing opinions. If you liked it or didn't like it, please make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. It's the best way to show YouTube this is a good video, and you can share it to more like-minded people like you. So this has been Mekimushi from Tunacheki, and that has been your Candid Africa, truthful and unapologetic.
Here is your latest Africa news. Africa's peacekeeping mission in Ukraine unaffected by Russia's uprising. South African Foreign Minister Naledi Pandor has said, last weekend's failed uprising in Russia will not affect African efforts to engage officials in Moscow and Kiev about the war in Ukraine. During her meeting with German Foreign Affairs Minister Annalena Baerbock, Ms. Naledi Pandor said, the attempted coup will not affect our intention to continue dialogue with the two countries. as the presidents who were part of the African Peace Mission have done, Pandor said after talks with his German counterpart Annalena Baerbock in Pretoria. A group of African presidents led by Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa visited Russia and Ukraine earlier this month as part of a peacekeeping mission. The visit was warmly welcomed by Russia, unlike in contrast Ukraine, where the presidential advisor, Mr. Podolyak, racially attacked the peace delegation, saying the African leaders did not have the mental capacity nor understanding to help end the Russia-Ukraine war. On Saturday, mercenaries led by Wagner Group owner Yevgeny Prigozhin entered the city of Rostov and tried to march toward Moscow, demanding the ouster of Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu. The insurgency ended abruptly hours after it began, when the group agreed to end the operation in a deal with the Kremlin, mediated by Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko. South Africa has insisted it is non-aligned in Russia's war in Ukraine and has faced criticism from Western powers for maintaining close ties with historic ally Russia. Pandor told reporters that the African peace mission to Kyiv and Moscow was a preliminary visit, and that the leaders of the two countries had agreed on further meetings in the next few weeks. Let us know in the comments below if you found this video informative. Please show your support by liking and sharing this video for the YouTube algorithm. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to receive updates on our latest videos. And always remember, Africa is watching.
Black Panther is supposed to be an African hero, but he wasn't fighting the enemies of Africa.
Here is a friend of Tuna Cheki.
So I didn't go and watch Wakanda Forever. And a lot of people look at me and say, wait a minute, you're black. You have to go and watch Wakanda Forever. The truth is, I didn't like Black Panther. I did go and see that, but I had a lot of issues with the movie. And I'm going to explain to you why I didn't like it and why I believe it did more harm than good to black people. Pay attention. When you look at white heroes, they tend to fight the enemy of the West at that given time. So Superman was created in 1933 and his enemy was the Germans, the Nazis. Wonder Woman was also the Nazis. Captain America also fought the Nazis. Iron Man fought a proxy for Al-Qaeda or Islamic terrorists. Now, the X-Men was a little bit different. They were actually an allegory for civil rights, but without the heroes actually being black. Because a lot of people say that Professor X and Magneto were basically Professor X's MLK and Magneto is Malcolm X in that universe. But it was just sort of weird that they used that as a template, but the actual heroes themselves weren't black. Black Panther is supposed to be an African hero, but he wasn't fighting the enemies of Africa. Portuguese slavers, British colonizers, American slavers, Belgians in the Congo, the French in West Africa, the Dutch in South Africa, Western multinational corporations that take our resources for peanuts. Black Panther avoided all the natural enemies of Black and African people, and instead Wakandans were fighting each other. Wakanda is meant to be the most technologically advanced country in the world, but instead of helping the impoverished African nations next to them, they hid themselves because they didn't want to have to change their way of life. So Wakanda just stood by and watched as neighboring African countries fell to colonialism, slavery, and apartheid. I'm the Merc. If you want to see the entire video, you can do so on my page, or you can click right here. There you will find videos on society, culture, Africa, and the diaspora.
Please go check the Merc's content here. And if you want to join our friends of Tuna Cheki family, hit us up. Thanks for watching. And remember, Africa is watching.
Let me be abusive a little bit, President Macron, and start by doing what is necessary on behalf of our people of Zambia, because Zambia was more or less used like a guinea pig.
Welcome to Candid Africa, truthful and unapologetic.
One of the deliverables was for this summit, and President Macron is aware. I came down here and requested that, obviously, also the President of China, that we should ensure that by the time this summit takes place, we'll have delivered the Zambia debt restructuring project. And as at yesterday, this is one of the deliverables at this summit. Thank you to China. Thank you to France for chairing the G20 framework. Thank you to South Africa for being the deputy chair for this process, and also to all of the countries that in one way or another supported this process to reach the conclusion it did yesterday and the benefit it would deliver to other debtor countries, because Zambia was more or less used like a guinea pig. And we are now in this situation, and we hope that the lessons of that process can be learned and learned correctly and be applied to the other processes that will commence starting, I believe, following this summit. But I must also say thank you to the people of Zambia for their patience. We took this project as one of our responsibilities before we formed government as an opposition party, that debt restructuring was a critical deliverable for us. And the people of Zambia were very patient, extremely patient, pain on the other side because of the structural adjustment, the structural processes. And if there's one lesson that I want to share with other countries, that leadership is crucial at a country level, to be clear of what you want and say so to your people. The people may not support everything that's necessary. Institutional reform, consumption expenditure controls, I dare say, habits of corruption are enjoyed by many in our countries. And when you put reforms, you confront them as well. But it's important to be intentional as leaders and then deliver that to our communities. They will go through the pain, but they will support you, as Zambians have done that. Thank you very much to the people of Zambia. Let me put context to this. Poverty, climate change. We have already argued that these are intertwined. There's no question about it. Let me draw the first aspect of the connection. Even before we talk about financing, new financing, more financing, when countries are not growing economically, you cannot expect a poor person to carry an additional burden. That is necessary to drive growth, to drive development. So poverty actually exacerbates the climate change mitigation measures, I argue. And it's very clear. If you are asking your poor people to switch energy sources, can they afford from charcoal to cleaner energy? They're already stressed. So we need to find mechanisms to support the poor in our countries, less privileged. I heard this word called poverty, the poor, but the less privileged, to be able to come through to support the changes that are required to mitigate climate change negative effects. I think that's very, very important. It's also true to say climate change, on the flip side, has imposed new obligations on the less privileged. For us as a global community to mobilize resources, yes, but these resources must be invested to help grow the economies of the less developed countries. Very important, because by doing that, we are creating capacity in those economies to mitigate against climate change and obviously poverty reduction. So value addition, not just with the electric vehicle industry that is coming through, huge industry. It is important, President Macron, that we look at deliberately investing in extraction, critical minerals, for example, in value adding these minerals in country. Obviously, that will help the growth side of the GDP, create jobs, business opportunities for the transactional chain in there, if I may call it that. So I think this must be deliberate as well. Rather than generic discussions, we must dive deep into the envelope and begin to say, these are requirements, these are needs, these are minimums. And it will mutually benefit, as somebody said yesterday, not to polarize the conversation, the North and the South. It would definitely, if it's structured properly, benefit the North, the South. And that's not the debate we must be engaging in, but mutuality for greater good, for a safe world, for a world that we can pass on to the next generation in a responsible manner.
There we have it. Let us know if you liked or hated what you heard in the comments below. In this show, we do not give you opinions. We want us to discuss below. That's the whole point of listening to a candid speech, not us imposing our opinions on you, but all of us discussing opinions. If you liked it or didn't like it, please make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. It's the best way to show YouTube this is a good video, and you can share it to more like-minded people like you. So this has been Mekimushi from Tunacheki, and that has been your Candid Africa, truthful and unapologetic.
Here is your latest Africa news. Russian Foreign Ministry issues statement that Wagner's continued presence in Africa is up to African countries to decide. The paramilitary group Wagner will continue to operate in Mali and the Central African Republic, the head of Russian diplomacy assured us on Monday, adding that the organization's rebellion in Russia will not affect relations between Moscow and its allies. Wagner members are currently working in Mali and the Central African Republic as instructors. This work will of course continue, said Sergei Lavrov in an interview. The Russian minister said that Europe and France, having abandoned the Central African Republic and Mali, these countries had turned to Russia and Wagner to provide military instructors and ensure the security of their leaders, Lavrov added. Mr. Lavrov also took the view that the armed rebellion of Wagner's leader, Yevgeny Prigozhin, and his men deployed in Ukraine would change nothing in Russia's relations with its allies. There have been many calls from foreign partners to President Vladimir Putin to express words of support, he said. For the West, Wagner is an instrument of Russian influence, designed to advance Moscow's interests and compete with those of the West in Africa. But as of now, the West is still very confused with the current situation between Wagner and the Russian government. For some African leaders, especially Central African Republic President Faustin Archange Touadera, it's another story. He owes his life to Wagner mercenaries after they put down an attempted coup in 2020 that some claimed was sponsored by France. Fidela Guanjica, a top advisor to Touadera, said Wagner's instructors came with Russia's blessing. The now disgraced Russian paramilitary company is increasingly active in Africa, particularly in Mali, where the military employs these mercenaries, and has sided diplomatically with Russia since the deterioration of its relations with France. So, what is Wagner's future in Africa? Let us know in the comments below if you found this video informative. Please show your support by liking and sharing this video for the YouTube algorithm. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to receive updates on our latest videos. And always remember, Africa is watching. Here is your latest Africa news. After facing rejection from Russia to attend this year's BRICS meeting in Africa, French President Emmanuel Macron criticized Russia's presence on the African continent during the new Global Financing Pact summit just held in Paris. Macron stated that Moscow's influence in the region does not benefit the international community, referring to it as a destabilizing force in Africa through the utilization of private militias that prey on and commit abuses against civilian populations. He accused Russia of destabilizing Africa through the deployment of the private military group Wagner. The Kremlin swiftly dismissed President Macron's allegations, denying that Russia is a destabilizing force in Africa. This accusation came as a surprise to many in Africa, particularly considering France's very destabilizing actions in Africa. At present, 14 African countries are forced by France, through the Colonial Pact, to deposit 85% of their reserves in the Central Bank of France, which is under the control of the French Ministry of Finance. Additionally, Togo and approximately 13 other African countries still have outstanding colonial debts to France as of 2023. African leaders who refuse or challenge this agreement often find themselves as victims of coup d'etat. The lack of these resources on the continent leads to massive poverty and suffering in the so-called Francophilic counties. Even the European Union denounces such neo-colonial policies today. Yet France remains unwilling to abandon this colonial system that exploits approximately $500 billion from Africa each year. Furthermore, France currently maintains around 3,000 troops in Africa, supposedly to combat terrorism in the Sahel. This is down from over 5,000 troops 2 years ago, since anti-French sentiment started growing. In response, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov emphasized that Russia is developing friendly, constructive relations based on mutual respect and concern for each other's problems. Moscow has gained influence in recent years in regions where France had traditionally held sway for centuries, including Burkina Faso, the Central African Republic, and Mali. France's influence has diminished due to the perceived inability of French troops to quell violence perpetrated by armed groups in these countries, leading to an increase in anti-French sentiment in the former French colonies. This situation has sparked a war of words between Moscow and Paris in recent years. Dmitry Peskov, the Kremlin spokesperson, also expressed confusion regarding Macron's attempt to secure a BRICS invitation from South Africa, stating, "We honestly don't know how Macron could participate in the summit, as whom or for what purpose. We don't have such information." Let us know in the comments below if you found this video informative. Please show your support by liking and sharing this video for the YouTube algorithm. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to receive updates on our latest videos. And always remember, Africa is watching.
Africa is a continent full of beauty. Its beauty can be seen through its places and its people. Welcome to the Amazing People of Africa series, where we take a look at some of the indigenous people of Africa. We will be exploring their lifestyles, cultures, and gaining insights into life through their knowledge and experiences. In today's video, we delve into the world of the Wanzami, Africa's most talented yet unique barbers. But before we begin, please take a moment to subscribe and hit the notification bell. In most cases, everyone has that one barber they go to for their usual cut, the one who understands you and consistently does your hair perfectly every time. Finding your perfect barber is usually a journey, and once you find them, you stick with them like glue. In Nigeria, particularly in Hausa culture, they understand the significance of a barber more than the rest of us. The Wanzami are a traditional group of barbers originating from the Hausa culture, predominantly found in northern Nigeria. The word Wanzami is derived from the Hausa language, where Wanza means hair and ni refers to a person who possesses a particular skill or craft. Thus, Wanzami roughly translates to hair craftsmen or barbers. The Wanzami have a rich history and are renowned for their exceptional barbering skills and unique approach to hairstyling. They have honed their craft for generations, passing down their knowledge and techniques from one family member to another. What sets them apart is their ability to blend traditional techniques with contemporary trends and traditional healing methods. Unlike other barbers who acquire their skills through formal education, in Hausa culture, being a Wanzami is often inherited and passed down through specific families. If someone is not born into the family, they must undergo rigorous training to become a Wanzami. The training typically lasts between 6 months to 2 years, during which they learn the art of hand dexterity, the preparation of medicinal solutions, and the identification and treatment of various head-related issues. Depending on the client's preferences, the Wanzami offer various services. For those seeking a regular haircut, the Wanzami skillfully remove all visible hair, tailoring the shave based on the desired style. They then use a small rag to clean the head. For clients suffering from headaches, the Wanzami employ a unique technique. Using a small horn, they place it on the person's head and cup it with their hands while blowing into it. After a while, the horn is removed, and a small incision is made with a razor to release any infected blood. This process is repeated until the wanzami is satisfied that all infected blood has been drained. The spot is then cleansed with a cotton ball and treated with medicine. The wanzami always carry a toolkit consisting of a variety of blades, scissors, and knives. They also have a metal cup and soap, along with other herbs, for use after shaving. Today, the wanzami continue to thrive, adapting to the changing times while preserving their ancestral knowledge. They are respected and celebrated for their artistry, contributing to the vibrant tapestry of Nigerian hairstyling and upholding the legacy of Hausa barbers. Each year, the wanzami hold rituals and festivals to showcase their talents and skills to a wider audience. Drummers and singers are employed to attract more spectators who can learn more about their beautiful and unique culture. What are your thoughts on these fascinating people and their culture? Would you consider visiting a wanzami for your next haircut? Leave a comment below and let us know. Also, suggest any other indigenous groups you'd like us to cover. Thank you for watching, and if you haven't subscribed, please do so. Be sure to watch our other videos that celebrate our Mama Africa. Until the next video, stay safe and remember, Africa is watching.
Here is your latest Africa news. The United Nations Security Council has unanimously voted to end its decade-long unsuccessful peacekeeping mission in Mali. The mission will have only 6 months to withdraw from the West African country. This month, Mali's Foreign Minister Abdoulaye Diop asked the force to leave without delay. Mali also kicked out French troops in 2022. Mali's foreign minister accused the UN mission of failing to respond to security challenges. The peacekeeping mission was established in 2013 to stabilize the country amid a rebel insurgency. He called on the United Nations Security Council to withdraw a peacekeeping mission operational in the country for a decade, citing its failure to respond to security challenges. MINUSMA head El Gassim Wayne reacted to Mali's decision, saying it was nearly impossible to maintain the mission without the host country's consent. There have been several protests in Mali and other parts of Africa, like the Democratic Republic of Congo and the Central Africa Republic, all calling on UN peacekeepers to leave due to failing to help. Currently, the United Nations has 4 peacekeeping missions in Africa: MINURSO in the Western Sahara, UNAMSIL in Sierra Leone, UNMI in Eritrea and Ethiopia, and MONUC in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. UN peacekeeping missions in Africa have faced numerous controversies, casting a shadow on their reputation. Instances of misconduct, abuse of power, and failure to protect civilians, theft of Narutal resources have emerged, causing significant concerns. These controversies have involved sexual exploitation and abuse, failure to protect civilians, corruption and financial mismanagement, use of excessive force, and inadequate capacity and training. But the most pressing concern from Mali is the UN's inability to effectively protect civilian populations during conflicts. The UN's response to the Rwandan genocide in 1994, where peacekeepers were unable to prevent the death of 1 million Rwandans and instead only saved white diplomats, stands as a tragic example. Similar concerns have been raised in relation to the Darfur conflict in Sudan and the ongoing crisis in South Sudan. Let us know in the comments below if you found this video informative. Please show your support by liking and sharing this video for the YouTube algorithm. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to receive updates on our latest videos. And always remember, Africa is watching.
I was thinking whether we should waste much time talking about Russia and Ukraine here.
Welcome to Candid Africa, truthful and unapologetic.
The only thing I can draw from that, this conflict, which has had many consequences that have gone beyond that geographical space and affected those of us, say, in Africa and beyond and other places, whether we shouldn't be thinking even more about what we should be doing together. And each of our countries doing their best to make the kinds of investments that will enable us to survive no matter what conflict in other places. As of course we wish to have no such a conflict, so even to end them where they are, but to primarily survive the consequences of that. For example, everyone has heard of shortage of grains, of fertilizer, all kinds of things that we need for food or input into our agricultural systems. So can we build resilient economies and have these sectors so that, because we can grow grains, you can have grains to feed Zambia, Rwanda, and the rest of Africa, especially given the agreements we have signed and the vision we share of self-sufficiency, so that we are able to weather the storm that comes from different parts of the. This is really my, for me, what would be more important, but this is not to sort of belittle or minimize the importance of the effort. You, the leaders of our continent, attempted to contribute to the peace that is required in that part of the world, but also benefiting the rest of the world. But I think putting them in terms of hierarchy, for me, the other one is more important, because even if you solve this problem, it doesn't matter that there is likely to be another conflict somewhere else. As we have seen, I'm talking as a student of history, or an observer who sees what happens in real life. So instead of running after one problem and trying to address it, which is necessary to do whenever that is required, but more important, running after these efforts to prevent by creating resilience in our governance, in our economies, in our productivity. And I think this is where, but it doesn't stop people trying to do something whenever and wherever they can to try and bring to an end any conflict like that, even before it affects our economies. It consumes people's lives in their thousands and really causes tragedies and the devastation. But so I'm not sure. Well, the journalist is doing his work, but as leaders, we have to do our work also.
Indeed.
In terms of educating some of these journalists.
Just to add on a little bit.
There we have it. Let us know if you liked or hated what you heard in the comments below. In this show, we do not give you opinions. We want us to discuss below. That's the whole point of listening to a candid speech, not us imposing our opinions on you, but all of us discussing opinions. If you liked it or didn't like it, please make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. It's the best way to show YouTube this is a good video, and you can share it to more like-minded people like you. So this has been Mekimushi from Tunacheki, and that has been your Candid Africa, truthful and unapologetic. When there's protests in Africa, everybody, the whole world knows. But when there's protests in Europe, it's like a secret. Nobody is supposed to know. Well, welcome to Tunacheki's Africa React. I'm your host, Mekimushi, and this is a show where we go online and react to viral videos concerning the African continent. So today we'll be doing a bit of different kind of reaction where the international media, CNN, BBC, DW, Fox News is reacting to the protests that are going on in Africa, majority of them peaceful, while ignoring the violent protests going on in Europe, especially in France, okay? So we will do a double standard. So instead of reacting to the peaceful protests in Africa, we will show you guys the violent protests in Paris that are currently going on. And even we will censor it because we want this video to be monetized, okay? So we will just show you the PG version, but just know what we show you is just like a PG version, and the actual violence going on in Paris, the protests against Macron, is, believe me, unbelievable. Before we continue, please make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. It's the best way to show YouTube this is a good video, and you'll recommend it to more like-minded people like you. So without further ado, let's check out the not African protests, but the Paris and France very violent protests, okay? Okay, that's just some of the protests are going on in Paris and in Europe. Okay, so let's discuss. Let me give you a bit of background. So for African countries, Kenya, South Africa, Tunisia, and Nigeria decided it will be a protest day to protest the hardships in the country and the current problems they're having in the country. So this is ironic because this is just today, and the whole Western media has been covering this mostly peaceful protests, like it's like the end of the world, while the Paris protests that you just seen have been going on for weeks, right? This currently that you've seen has been going on for weeks, not just days, not just today, but for weeks. And the international media totally is ignoring it. How many of you knew there was even protests in Paris, like violent, crazy protests in Paris, right? So this is the kind of double standards that we are really sick of as Africans, and those people who in Western media should really be ashamed and sick to the bone for how they portray Africa. Like with the protesters, we are the violent one. No, believe me, the protests in France and in Paris are violent, like deadly violent, okay? And then the police reaction to these protests have been violent, deadly, and see how these Europeans, these free Europeans, these free Westerners treat their people democracy. Man, they're beating this case up like animals, right? Come on. So this has been our quick Africa React to the double standards when there's protests in Africa. Everybody, the whole world knows, but when there's protests in Europe, it's like a secret. Nobody is supposed to know. Europe is civilized. People don't protest. The police do not commit violence to the people. Come on, total violence, and it's being censored by the mainstream media, by the corporate media, by this state-controlled media. Okay. So with that said, this has been Makimushi from Tunachiki, and always remember, Africa is watching.
I think I will join those who are standing. I don't know the criteria, but let me join. Thank you very much, and let me appreciate my brother Macron for putting this. How dare you?
So with that said, thank you for everybody who tuned in. We appreciate you guys. As always, please share this video after it finishes to friends and family. Please like this video. It really helps us with the YouTube algorithm. That's how YouTube knows it's a good video, and it will keep recommending it to more people, spreading our message, okay? So we really appreciate you guys. And as always, it's been me, Makimushi from Tunachiki, and Africa is watching. Bye, guys.